In this lecture, we are going to apply styles to the block. As we found out from the previous lecture, the block props function will apply classes to the root element. These classes will help us with applying styles. However, we're not limited to these classes. Custom classes can be applied through the block props function. I'm getting ahead, so let's jump into it. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to the styles for the block we're developing. As I said before, we're not going to focus on the CSS of our plugin or theme. I'll be providing links to the completed CSS for each block that we develop. Copy the CSS into your clipboard. Next, switch over to your editor. Inside the source directory, create a file called main.css. Lastly, paste the CSS into this file. By default, Webpack is not configured to load our CSS. We must import this file into our script. Open the index.js file. At the top, import the main.css file. The import statement might look strange if you're not familiar with importing CSS. JavaScript does not support CSS imports. Technically, this line of code should throw an error. However, Webpack supports CSS imports. It'll allow us to import CSS into our script files. Unlike previous imports, the CSS does not get assigned to a variable. That's to be expected. We're not able to manipulate our CSS. There isn't a point in assigning the CSS to a variable. It's perfectly valid to import files like this. After importing our CSS, Webpack will create a separate file for our CSS. We'll see what this looks like in a moment. Let's head back to our CSS file. Inside this file, we are using a selector called fancyHeader. The block props function will supply us with a class. However, that doesn't mean we can't use custom class names. You have the option of using WordPress's classes or creating your own. In most cases, it's simpler to use WordPress's classes. Normally, I would modify my CSS to match WordPress's class names. For demonstration purposes, let's learn how to add custom classes. During the development of subsequent blocks, we will stick to WordPress's class names. Head back to the index.js file. Inside the edit function, we are going to modify the useBlockProps function by passing in an object. This function allows us to pass in an object for modifying the classes and styles applied to the root element. Keep in mind, it does not override the existing classes on the element. We are only adding classes. A class can be added by adding the class name property. Let's set this property to fancyHeader. This class should be applied to the save component. We are going to copy the object. Next, over in the save function, paste the object into the useBlockProps.save function. We're almost finished. Our block should have the class applied to it. However, the CSS file has not been enqueued. Let's look at the build folder. Webpack should be running in the background. It should have picked up on our CSS import. By importing CSS, the CSS will be added to a file called index.css. You can open this file to check out the contents. It'll match the CSS from the source directory. The next step is clear. We must enqueue this file. CSS files can be enqueued with the block.json file. Open this file in your editor. WordPress provides two options for enqueuing styles called Editor Style and Style. The Editor Style option will enqueue a file on the editor page. It'll never be enqueued on the front end, whereas the Style option will enqueue a file on the editor and front end. For our block, we are going to use the Style option. The Editor Style option can be safely removed. Next, let's set the style option to the following value: file./index.css. After making those adjustments, our styles should be enqueued. Refresh the page in the browser. The block will need to be re-added for the classes to apply. Let's quickly do that. The heading's appearance should change. The hover effect will not work because we haven't added a color. That's something we'll tackle in another lecture. For now, let's do the heading on the front end. Same as before, the heading's appearance has slightly changed. To verify the class has been added, inspect the heading with the developer tools. Our class has been added along with the styles. Perfect. We've successfully enqueued the styles. However, not everything is sunshine and rainbows. Back in the Gutenberg editor, the text is centered on the page. On the front end, the text is aligned to the left of the page. On both sides, the text should be aligned to the left. Let's explore this issue in the next lecture.